After 2 hours and 45 minutes of sitting through Wizards Media Day, one thing is very evident to me. It's that Tre Johnson hasn't even played an NBA minute yet, and he has a ridiculous amount of respect from his teammates, and it's because he's a basketball maniac.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you're locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're a part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are your Washington Wizards coverage Monday through Friday, free and available on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to join the DC family. I'm Ben Strober, one of your co-hosts. I cover all things DC sports for 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980, and alongside, as always, my co-host of DC Sports content creating savant, Abdullah Ayubi. AB, we just got back from Wizards Media Day, a long day at Care First Arena in Anacostia, but a great day overall. Well worth the time that we spent in that building to hear from all of the Washington Wizards and the head coach Brian Keefe as well. A special day for you and I there in that building.
Not only was I able to ask a question to Tre Johnson, I was also able to meet the great ginger assassin himself, Benjamin Strober. Also met David Ulrich, Chris Miller. Great reporters, great commenters, and it was just an overall awesome day. It was a surreal experience because I grew up a Wizards fan, and being able to be there and in the arena and cover this team, it was a blessing, and I can't wait to talk about what happened today.
Real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Yeah, AB, I was super excited for you because I know this is kind of your first go-around in a lot of the sports media stuff, so I was excited for you to get that experience, and what a special one it was today. We heard from 12 different Washington Wizards. We're going to break down the entirety of everything we heard throughout Media Day today for the Washington Wizards, but one thing that stuck out to me is almost every single player that spoke, head coach Brian Keefe as well, those guys could not go more than 2 minutes without bringing up Tre Johnson. Tre Johnson would come up in so many different questions from the media that was there asking the questions as well, but man, nothing but super positive things to say about Tre Johnson, and it seems to me that he has a pretty much unprecedented amount of respect from his teammates around him. The young ones and the veterans as well had nothing but really, really impactful things to say about what kind of respect Tre Johnson has garnered already. He hasn't even played a minute yet, and it seems like he's getting respected like he is a veteran-level player. And the reason for that is because he is obsessed with basketball. We've been saying that the entire summer, but oh my goodness, when you hear these players talk about it firsthand, how they can't get this guy to find another hobby. Head coach Brian Keefe said they talked to him about it. They can't find a hobby for the guy. It's actually insane, AB, and every single one of these guys brought it up, and we're going to continue to break that down as we go through the episode today.
I think that's what Tre Johnson's going to be known for, a guy that literally is the human embodiment of ball his life. And it was great to hear all the positive things about Tre. We all know how special he is. And I think another thing is that how wired he was in the press conference. You could just tell a guy who just wants to go out there and hoop. And like you mentioned, his teammates were speaking very highly of him. Corey Kispert, quote, said he is wired to get a bucket. He is a guy that can go out there and score. And for us Wizards fans, the idea of Rookie of the Year, people were asking about him, about that idea. Is that in your head of wanting to win Rookie of the Year? And it's all about going out there and playing basketball. And I think that's a big reason why he's going to be a Rookie of the Year candidate. As much as we love Cooper Flagg out there in Dallas and VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey, this guy, Tre Johnson, has checked off all the boxes, and I truly think he can be a special talent here in DC.
So the press conference started off with Brian Keefe, the head coach of the Wizards, addressing the media and basically going through what a developmental season looks like for him. And he specifically brought up Tre Johnson as part of that equation, the way they're going to be able to develop the pieces. They feel like he's a guy that's instantly going to help you compete night in, night out because of how competitive he is wired to be. That's the way he's been in practice. We know all about the shooting competitions he's been in with Bub Carrington. A lot of reporters asked about that as well. And a lot of the other guys just seemed like they had so much respect for what Tre Johnson has done off the court this entire summer. They say that he would show up early, leave late. And the veterans, they're going to be so important. to being part of the equation for what the Wizards are going to be able to accomplish this season and beyond. CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton are going to have a super impactful role in this team. I'm going to talk about that in the third segment. We're going to let you hear from CJ McCollum, who really was probably my favorite person that spoke today. Just super insightful in everything he was able to detail, but he talked a lot about Tre Johnson. I think it's easy for Tre Johnson to come up so often in conversation because this is a dude that was a 6 overall pick. He was a guy that could have gone as high as a top 3 or 4 guy in this draft class. Ultimately, he falls to 6, and Washington gets the chance to make him the prized possession here in D.C. A lot of the attention will be on him and what he does with the basketball in his hands. But there's a lot of love that has to go around. So, the question would come up to the head coach, Brian Keefe. They say, how are you going to kind of manage the way people touch the basketball? And, what are the lineups going to look like? And he said, I haven't even thought about lineups. I haven't thought for a single minute who's starting or who's going to be out there. So everything's going to be about competition. That's what Will Dawkins brought up as well throughout last press conference, is that everything will be in terms of competing in training camp. Everyone is going to have to earn all the minutes they play. And based on what we hear from all the other players around him and how often they talk about Tre Johnson, it sounds like they're pretty high on what he's about to do here in his rookie year.
Another common theme, Ben, that I loved hearing was defense. As much as we love Tre Johnson, the offensive game he's going to bring, a lot of guys out there were talking about how this team needs to get better defensively, and I'm hoping that that's the case with the young energy and movement that you have. Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, you have guys who can play at a high level, and it all starts with the veterans. I think CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton, one of them mentioned the fact that you have to build those early winning habits, and those habits all start from the defensive side of the ball. As much as, like I mentioned earlier, this team is going to go out there and score a lot of points with the talents of Tre Johnson, Bob Carrington, CJ McCollum, we need to go out there and defend the rim. We need to go out there and close on three-point shooters. So I'm hoping what I took away from today's media day is that this team is going to emphasize defense again, because there's only so much you could do offensively. Defensively, if let's say this team scores 125, 120 points a game, if you're letting up a 135, does it really make a difference?
Yeah, exactly. Defense is going to be super important, and every single player pretty much talked about it. Tre Johnson, when they got to ask him about defensive tendencies and what that looks like for him, because that was the one rap on him coming out of the draft, is can he defend? Does he have what it takes to take the next step at the NBA level and really be able to get it done on both ends of the court? And he said, in quote, it's a want-to thing. And what if we said the entire summer, defense is all about how much you want to play it? He said, I definitely want to play it because I want to be great on both sides of the floor. So that's why I've been working on it. We heard Will Riley mention that defense has been a big thing that he's been working on. Keyshawn George, who said he added 4 pounds of muscle this offseason. He should be improved defensively. And that was one of the main things as well from head coach Brian Keefe. They're so high on Keyshawn George because of the ability he has to guard 1 through 4. They really feel like he can match up with anyone. One, because the athleticism should be increased with the muscle mass that he's put on, but also he's going to be able to hold his ground against some of these bigger guys much better. And it was refreshing to hear how he feels like being intentional. Being intentional. That was a word that came up so often, or a phrase rather. They were super intentional in what they were doing this offseason. The aspect of getting there 6 days a week for 2-a-days. A lot of players mentioned how they'd be in the facility there every single day of the week, except for one of them, I guess, and they would be in there twice for multiple workouts. And because of that, in the AmeriCup basketball tournament that Keyshawn George was playing in, he feels like his ability was so much more because of what he did in the offseason, and that's why the coaching staff raves so much about him as well.
Another takeaway that I found interesting, Ben, was I think it was Chase Hughes or Bijan Todd. They asked Coach Keefe, is there any concern of the defensive rebounding at all for this Wizards team? Because, again, bottom 5 in that category this past season and for the past couple of seasons. And Coach Keefe brought up the fact that you have big wings on this team and big guards. So I'm hoping that the Wizards find a way, and this coaching staff finds a way to exploit the size that you have on the court, because it does make a difference. Bob Carrington 6'5", CJ 6'6", Tre Johnson 6'6". You want to go out there and rebound the ball as well, and I think Bob Carrington can be that guy, and on top of that, have that point guard role. So that was another interesting takeaway.
Yeah, and I was glad Varun Shankar of the Washington Post also asked Alex Sarr directly how he felt like he could improve as a rebounder, and the answer wasn't quite as long-winded maybe as he would have expected. He said, I think we'll definitely be a better team if I'm able to improve as a defensive rebounder, but he mentioned defensively he wants to be more efficient in terms of going up for those opportunities to get blocked. He wants to get better around the rim when he gets 2 feet in the paint. So overall, it seems like there was a genuine desire from a lot of these guys to get better throughout the offseason. I mean, I just couldn't really get over the fact how often Tre Johnson's name came up in this entire press conference from everyone. Almost every single reporter would ask players what they thought about Tre Johnson. They had nothing but ridiculous things to say about how dedicated he was to the game and how it was just crazy that he didn't have any other hobbies out of basketball. Everybody said it. Almost everyone said, yeah, like that guy doesn't do anything but think about basketball. I guess all he does is sleep and play basketball. You're going to hear that in the audio later that we play from CJ McCollum. But I just found that super interesting, and that just gets me hype for this year because you feel like you genuinely got a dude that can make a difference, somebody that lives and breathes the sport. That's what's going to make a difference on the locker room. What Tre Johnson is doing right now, the amount of respect he is garnering from his teammates around him, including the veterans. You have Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum, 34 and 33-year-old guys that are impressed by the way he's dedicated himself to the game, where they're almost saying he's maybe a little bit too dedicated at times. I feel like when you have a player like that on your hands, it gives you the opportunity to elevate everybody around you because everyone's going to see that's the standard. And standard is a word that came up a lot. Head coach Brian Keefe said, we feel like we're going to set the standard for competing night in, night out. We don't want to be a team on the schedule where people say, hey, that's an easy dub. We want to be a team that's pesky, a thorn in your side. And when the game is over, we want to say, man, those guys made it really tough on us tonight. They're a team that definitely deserves respect. And I think with Tre Johnson and his mentality, if everyone else around him can elevate to his level of dedication, to his desire to be great, I think they are going to be a team that's like that. They're going to be a tough out every single night if they keep that mentality up.
I 100% agree. And one last thing was I love how Coach Keefe also emphasized the fact that Trey, Will Riley, and Jimmy Watkins this draft class fits the culture, like you mentioned, the standard that they're trying to build here in DC, and I'm hoping that they can build on it for the rookie season.
We'll talk more about culture when we come back and talk a little bit more about head coach Brian Keefe and what he had to say. That's next here on Locked On Wizards. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste in a tiny shot, and you can take it anywhere to get that boost when you need it. My favorite flavor is the lime flavor. I like it so much because it reminds me of drinking a cold, refreshing Sprite from my childhood. I always reach for it because it's refreshing and it gives me that quick lift before a busy day. I've been eyeing the new pumpkin spice flavor too. It sounds like the perfect one to try next now that we are in the thick of fall. I reach for 5-hour energy because of the portability. I love that I can take it on the go right before I go to work or before I go to Wizards Media Day, for that matter. Honestly, I just love how fast it kicks in and it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store or online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. AB, I'm super glad that you brought up the word culture because that came up a lot throughout the press conference. I'm trying to pull up the tweet right here, but as I'm doing that, they reiterated that so many times throughout the press conference, and every single answer we got from all 12 players that spoke, we heard from pretty much everybody today except for the guys on two-way contracts, the guys on the Exhibit 10s, no Marvin Bagley or Anthony Gill as well. They were there, we saw them, but those guys didn't end up speaking today. But when you have 12 different guys speaking and the message is clear from all of those players, that seems like a very good sign to me. That makes it seem like that people are truly bought in to what the organization is trying to instill here. They said, yeah, like we got to go out there, we got to compete, we got to set the standard of what Wizards basketball is going to become. Because, quite frank, the past couple of years they admitted at times it wasn't good enough. Too many of the minutes were being given out, not necessarily earned, and things have to change because you got to be better defensively. You have to have a desire to go out there and be a good defensive team, to be a team that can go out there and compete on the defensive glass every single night. It's all about an effort thing, and it seems like these guys have truly bought in and embraced the challenge that's going to come with the amount of competition there will be. And even a veteran like Corey Kispert, he impressed me today in his press conference because you could imagine a guy that's in his spot. It's kind of precarious in a way because he's from the previous regime. Him and Anthony Gill are, I guess, the two longest tenured Wizards that are still here. So, a lot of people asked him, how have you seen things change and how does it feel to be the longest tenured guy? He said, it's interesting because you have so many young guys and guys that are playing at my own position here, but I've really embraced the challenge because I think at the end of the day, if you have an opportunity to go out there and prove yourself and earn every single minute you play. That's really all you can ask for as a player. He said sometimes it doesn't work out in your favor, but you have to be grateful that you even had the opportunity to try to fight for it, to try to showcase yourself. And we heard that from all the young players as well. They said, we know it's going to be competitive out there, and we're going to have to fight for every single minute that we play in the basketball floor, and we understand that. We completely embrace the way that it's going to be, and we think that's going to make us better in the long run. They've embraced the challenge that's going to come with the competitive nature of camp this year.
And going back to Corey Kispert, Ben, I loved one thing that he said. He emphasized that he needs to be more aggressive this year to help this team win. And like you mentioned, this guy is the oldest Wizards player from the tenure, and on top of that with Anthony Gill. For a guy who came into the league, was a shooter, you could see the progression that he had when it comes to going downhill and attacking, but the idea of him being a liability on defense, that friendly contract, that's one thing that's keeping the Kispert on this team, but again, the wing position is just so, there's a surplus of wings right here. On top of that, you also drafted Jameer Watkins, and I just don't know what his future here is in Washington, but I'm hoping that a guy can definitely make his mark when it comes to three-point shooting when he gets in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The aggressiveness, as you mentioned, he said that's something that he needs to make the team better and to make himself better all around. And I feel like aggressiveness is something that we've heard from a lot of these players. Bilal Coulibaly spoke and said he was frustrated about the injury and how it sets him back a little bit, but he said he's been working tirelessly at trying to improve his assertiveness. He said the one thing that he was trying to work on throughout the Eurobasket is that he wanted to be more assertive. He wanted to be more aggressive, try to get downhill and use his athleticism to his advantage. Same thing applies to Bub Carrington. That's what he said he worked on the most this summer, was getting downhill. He got to work with Colin Sexton at one point this summer as well, so that was a big question that was asked to him, and he said to Varun Shankar, he said, man, you don't miss anything, do you? And he said, yeah, I mean, I just want to know what that experience was like. And he said, well, we worked on a lot on explosiveness and trying to beat your man off the bounce, get downhill, get 2 feet in the paint, and finish with more efficiency at the rim. That's great, because the one aspect of his game, and Bub Carrington himself admitted this today, is that the thing that he struggled with the most, the biggest weakness of his game, was the ability to finish at the rim and get downhill and beat his defender off the dribble. So it seems like there's been a good plan set in place for most of these players on how they're going to attack the biggest weaknesses in their game, because they use the word jump a ton. Each of the players, Brian Keefe, Will Dawkins, they all use the word jump because that's the expectation that you have this year, that you're meaningfully developing and you're going to take a jump from this part of the player. He's at Bub Carrington. They asked him, how do you feel confidence-wise from the moment you hit the game winner to end the season last year? And I'm going to, if you're listening to the audio version, it doesn't do it as much justice, but he put his hand above his head. He said, when I hit that game winner in Miami, my confidence was here, and then he raised it about 2 more feet in the air. He said, this is where I'm at right now. So it shows that these guys have been working throughout the offseason to get to the potential they believe they have. And I think there's a lot of confidence in the building right now that they're going to compete night in, night out. They understand that this is still a process and that there's going to be struggles that come with it. There's going to be a learning curve that comes for a lot of these players, like Cam Whitmore, which we'll get into a little bit more in the third segment. But overall, these guys seem super bought into the plan that has been instilled so far throughout the offseason.
And I love the chemistry between Bub Carrington and Cam Whitmore, Ben. Those guys that have been knowing each other for quite a while. It's just small things like that build over time and contribute to a winning culture. And going back to Will Riley, one thing that I also wanted to talk about was that when he was asked about what differentiates himself from the other wings in this group, he says that his movement on and off the ball is what makes him really good. And I'm hoping that he can contribute to this team come his rookie year. I understand that this surplus of wings might hold him back, but this Wizards team last year, even previous years, the offense was pretty stagnant and not a lot of movement. But I'm hoping a guy like Will Riley can find himself and carve himself a role in this offense and be able to take a shot off the dribble.
Yeah, and it looked like he put a little bit of weight on since we first saw him in the summer league, and I think a lot of these guys has. Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr admitted to putting on weight. Most of these guys, Tre Johnson included from what we heard last week, have been able to put on some pretty significant muscle mass over the summer. In fact, the first person that we spoke to today after head coach Brian Keefe was Chris Middleton, and somebody asked, what's the biggest change you've seen from these young players since you got to Washington back in February? And he said their bodies. He said everybody looks a lot bigger. The shoulders are broader. Everybody looks like they have a lot more athleticism to it. And that's going to be huge for a lot of these guys going forward. A.J. Johnson said he had put on 9 pounds. So that is really, really interesting because AJ Johnson people were saying he was a stick out there last year, and he did noticeably look bigger to me up at the podium.
And I think Bub said he was 193 last season. Now he's 204 and plays at 200. So everyone's been in the weight room. I love it.
I mean, that's the one thing you got to do in the NBA is you got to find a way to get bigger. And most of these guys are so young that they are still growing. That's the thing. They're going to gain weight gradually because some of them are still getting taller. Keyshawn George got about a half inch taller. Alex Sarr got nearly an inch taller. So when you get a little bit taller, you're going to put on that weight as well. But these guys are adding muscle as time goes on. I said it last week and I'll say it again. Jason Tatum was skinny when he came out of college at Duke. Now the dude is huge. He is jacked and he is a force. There's a reason Jason Tatum is one of the best players in the NBA, and it's because of the strength that he's put on over the years. And I think that's going to be the expectation you see going forward from a lot of these Wizards players. They're going to continue to be diligent in the weight room, get better in different ways than just basketball, and it seems like that's what the Wizards have done this offseason.
And we're hoping to see all that put together this upcoming year when this team is competitive night in and night out.
Exactly. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about the veteran presence that we saw from CJ McCollum today and Chris Middleton and why that's going to be a little bit more important than maybe you even think. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet player props, same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. FanDuel is the best way to do it. It makes every game even more exciting. Whether I'm watching my team or just keeping an eye on the fantasy lineup, FanDuel is the way to go. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So today was the first time I really got to sit and listen to CJ McCollum deliver a press conference. He spoke the longest out of anybody. He went almost damn near 30 minutes in his allotment. Most guys were supposed to speak anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. CJ McCollum, I think they let him go a lot longer just because they knew he was going to go long. He's got the background in broadcasting, and I'll tell you right now, AB, he's going to have a super successful career in broadcasting when his playing days are done. But his playing days might not be done as soon as we think. He said that he feels like he's going to have his best year right now. And the one quote that stuck out to me, he said, "I'm in better shape right now than when I dropped 50 on y'all last year." He really said that today.
Yeah, you got to love it. The energy that CJ McCollum's going to bring to this team outside of his scoring presence, a guy who's been playing the game for a while, was part of that Western Conference Finals run with the Portland Trail Blazers, has played with a great point guard in Damian Lillard in his career. And I just think the experience that he's going to bring to in this guard room with a young AJ Johnson, with the Bub Carrington who's trying to figure himself out, Tre Johnson, where a lot of us are hoping that he can pick apart CJ McCollum's game and incorporate it into his game. And I'm hoping that CJ, as much as I want him to go out there and score, what happens off the court? I think the veteran leadership last season with Kyle Kuzma, a guy who a lot of people were just saying was a distraction on and off the court, didn't seem like he wanted to help out these young guys. But now a guy like CJ McCollum, who is already a baller, but maybe with the IQ that he brings, that high IQ, can definitely be picked apart from the young guys.
Yeah, and McCollum made it pretty apparent. He said, hey, I can still play. That's going to be my role. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to get buckets, and I'm going to help make my teammates better. But he also understands how his role is bigger than this and how it means a lot going forward. CJ McCollum is going to be such a key veteran piece to this team that, you know, even if you aren't able to trade him for any assets at the deadline, he's such a good guy to have around for this organization. He said he understands his role in helping the young players create good habits to grow as players. He said, these dudes are so young, I can't even give them a glass of wine. I have to tell them, hey, you're not old enough to have this, kid. You got to learn to eat your veggies still. You're growing. You're a growing boy, and you got to get your diet right. You got to get your schedule right, the way you stretch. He really alluded a lot. He told a lot of great stories from what it was like when he was their age. And that's why he talked about Tre Johnson being super basketball obsessed. You know, how he was kind of like that when he was his age, and eventually he grew out of it, but it's an important aspect of it. Just from the minute details, showing up to the building every day, doing yoga, stretching, the way you will stretch after the workouts as well, what you're putting in your body, getting adequate sleep, the way you watch film, asking people questions to get better. CJ McCollum understands that He is there to teach these players exactly how to be a professional, how to get better, and how to sustain a long career in the NBA. If there's anyone that knows really well how to sustain a long career where you can play at a high level in the NBA, it's CJ McCollum. These guys he is the perfect guy for these young players to learn from.
I think also Chris Milton, another great veteran, he talked about his early years in the NBA, playing alongside guys like Greg Monroe and how he had to learn a lot, and it was quite an adjustment. And now he's the guy that's teaching these young guys. So I love this veteran group here that we have in D.C. On top of that, also Marvin Bagley, who he knows how to play the game, and we're hoping that this front court room gets figured out. I know there's holes there, but is it there on purpose? Who knows? This Wizard squad, there's just so much confidence that I love, and they just look like a good team. There doesn't seem like any concerns or bad locker room or bad body language. They checked off every single box when we were watching them talk, man.
I think they're super tight-knit, and I've obviously McCollum and Tre Johnson already have a pretty good relationship. I want everyone to take a listen in. This is what CJ McCollum had to say about Tre Johnson being literally obsessed with basketball to a point where maybe it's a little bit too much, and he should consider really getting a hobby.
Young fella from Texas, I was telling him, I was like, what do you do besides play basketball? And I had to envision like what it was like when I was 19, and I was still in college with an NBA. And he was like, I just sleep. And I was like, bro, you gotta like find something else. Like, you don't play video games? He's like, no. I was like, all I do is hoop. And I was like, that's great, and like that's important. And that's the type of mentality you gotta have. But I was like, you need an escape. Like, I was like, this is about to be 82 games, practice every day. You're only off once every 6 days. We're gonna be in new cities every night. We're gonna be landing. I was like, you're gonna need like something to do on that off day. That's not basketball, like massage, yoga, whatever. So we were just talking. I was just thinking, like, what did I do when I was 20? And I was like, it's like, damn, I didn't have like, I played video games for like a year, and then I stopped playing video games, and then I started had my own radio show. So like that was like an hour out of the day where I could just like get away from basketball. But I said it's 24 hours in a day, so you got to find some hobbies. I was like, I'll send you some books, I'll send you some stuff, but like you got to find something else that you can escape the game from. Because like if you don't have an escape, you'll go crazy, and that's what I've noticed in this sport. Without balance, there's chaos, and I think
if you don't have an escape, you'll go crazy. Tre Johnson got asked about that probably around an hour later when it was his turn to speak. They said, how's it going? You finding a hobby? He said, I'm not there yet. I'm working on it, though. And everyone in there laughed. But it's really insane to me. It like blows my mind that this dude doesn't have a hobby outside of basketball. And it's not even a bit. It's genuinely a serious thing. And you can hear it in the way CJ McCollum is speaking. He's so well-spoken. Like him detailing that answer and really breaking it down and explaining puts it into perspective how obsessed Tre Johnson is with basketball and how that is rubbing off on the guys around him. They can just tell how big of a deal this is for him and how much of his love of the game really, maybe affects the way he thinks and why it's going to be important for him to figure something out in terms of a hobby or doing something else just so he can mentally keep himself sane throughout the season. But who knows? Maybe Tre is literally just different. He might just be different. I don't know.
Eventually he'll pick up a hobby or two, but that's great to hear that CJ McCollum is speaking so highly of him and all of his other teammates. And I think eventually Tre Johnson is going to, again, we mentioned earlier, Ben, about the whole lineup situation, but at what game after today, Ben, do you see Tre Johnson solidifying himself in the starting lineup?
I mean, given the fact that Keefe says he has no idea, he might be completely lying when he says
that's
he hasn't.
He
said he hadn't thought for a single minute about who starts or what the lineup will be. I feel like they've probably thought about it at least for a second, if not a minute. Brian Keefe might not be saying much. He made it very clear that he doesn't like to give very specific answer because, once again, our guy Varun Shankar tried to ask him a very specific question. He said, you always try to get me to say something specific, and I'm not going to do it, Varun. So it's pretty funny, pretty candidly said right there from the head coach of the Washington Wizards, Brian Keefe. But with that being said, in the way we hear the mentality is and the respect that he has around him, I still have the impression that I think he's going to start opening night. I really do.
I think so as well. And once that opening night happens, I think the rest is going to be history. He's going to be a really good scorer in a long time.
Yeah, he's looking forward to camp. He said he's just super excited to see what challenges it brings him because he's up for the challenge. He is ready to embrace what is coming his way. There are so many different guys that have new challenges. Cam Whitmore, who we didn't even have time to break down today. There was a lot of talk about him, but that's going to be in tomorrow's episode. That's what's tough about this 30-minute thing, Abdullah. When you get as much as we just got in those 2 hours and 45 minutes, you can't even cover all this stuff in one singular episode. The Tre Johnson stuff was just so immediate to me today. I was like really blown away by how much respect he has from his teammates and how often they talked about him, because it was almost a bit unwarranted at times. They said, oh my God, that dude is just a shooter. He tears the nets off the gym. It's insane what he's able to do, just shooting the basketball and everything he's able to do. He's going to be a special talent. The fact that you're hearing that from the coaches, from the players around him, it just tells me how special of a player he's going to be here in year number 1.
And not many rookies get that respect before they even play their first regular season game. So
it's what I'm saying. It's because of the mentality. I mean, think about it. If you went to work, like, you know, I'm in a work environment, and I look around me and I see people who are working maybe even harder than the person next to me. If you see somebody that is working that much harder than all of the other people around him, you're going to notice that, right?
100%.
And I think that's what you see from Tre Johnson. Not a knock on anyone saying that Tre Johnson is working harder than them because everyone else isn't working enough, because I think it's become pretty apparent that everybody is working enough. Everyone has been diligent in the offseason plan. He's just doing that much more, and the conversations he's having are just that much more substance that people say, wow, this dude is really working his ass off every single day to an extent. Like, we got to give him his flowers because this is crazy. And that's just what it's come to.
You love to see it. This goes back to the culture that you're trying to build here in DC.
Culture is looking like it's in a good spot, and we're hoping to see real results on the floor this year in terms of competing. That's what Brian Keefe said today. That's what everyone else said. They want to compete for all 4 quarters of the game. They don't want to lose 60 games anymore. They don't want to be losing games by 30 points every single night. That's obvious, but the results are going to have to actually, you know, it's result oriented. Everything can be about process, but if you don't see these results, then what does it matter what people are really saying? So we're going to see if that really does end up happening, AB.
100%, and I can't wait from opening night. This team, I know they're not going to win a lot of games like we keep mentioning, but they are going to be competitive. You can bet that.
It's going to be fun. The first practice is tomorrow. We're going to have even more from what we found out today at Wizards Media Day in our next edition of Locked On Wizards. But we want to thank everyone for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today. If you're just seeing our channel for the first time, subscribe. We are your Wizards coverage Monday through Friday, free and available on YouTube and wherever you get your platforms. We are just getting started today. It was a first taste for us in the building, and we got a lot of more great content coming your way as we continue to break down what we found out from Wizards Media Day. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen. For your second, check out the Locked On NBA podcast for everything you need to know ahead of training camp around the NBA. More to come tomorrow here on Locked On Wizards. For my co-host Abdullah, I'm Ben Sherbert. Wizards Nation, we're out.